9 in our book, Adult Spiritual Development, our journey from primitive ego to an awakened consciousness. Today we're going to be talking about growth in self-awareness. We've been talking about it in the first chapters, obviously. Today I want to get in a little bit more into bedrock thinking. Everything that we're doing now in some of these later chapters is to help you really get grounded in the whole concept of growth and self-awareness. In other words, learning how to pay attention to our primitive ego so that we can awaken and become more enlightened. This chapter has quite a lot in it. I've got 5 of what I think are kind of the key points in the chapter, but I think you'll enjoy reading it. Okay, let's get started. Number 1, deep self-awareness is a spiritual practice, okay? Basically, the way I like to think about it is that deep self-awareness or growth in self-awareness is by definition the exact same thing as authentic spiritual growth. It's heart energy, not ego energy. We'll talk more about that in a second. But basically, as we grow in self-awareness, we really are growing in an authentic spiritual growth. We can reverse that. We can say authentic spiritual growth has nothing to do with head energy. It's all heart energy. It's a spiritual practice of becoming more self-aware. So I think the importance of this for me is the idea that it links the work that we're doing with our spirituality in a very, very direct way. If we want to grow spiritually and become unconditionally compassionate and empathic and loving to the world, then we have to become self-aware. If we're not, we're going to be working out of our primitive ego. Okay? It's just a simple way of thinking about it that I find very, very helpful on my own journey. Okay, second major point. Second major point is religion is about beliefs. Spirituality is about behavior and manifesting our deepest values. Big difference. What we're doing again now is we're talking about the journey, the authentic spiritual growth journey to an awakened consciousness, is learning how to embrace heart energy, not ego energy. In other words, heart versus mind, okay? So again, this book is not about changing anyone's understanding of religion. Whatever your understanding about religion is, that's fine. I'm not challenging any of those. What I'm trying to do is to graft on additional information so that it gives you the opportunity to actually grow and move forward, okay? So our focus is on spirituality. This is where we're going to put our attention, always, and that's deep self-awareness. Okay, third point. Self-awareness is growth in who we are, not who we think we should be. That's ego, okay? Who we are, just observing consciousness. So what happens is that a lot of times if we're going to grow in self-awareness, we try to do it by looking in the wrong places. We try to read a book. We try to walk in nature. Now, none of these are bad, okay? It's just that it's not going to help us directly grow in self-awareness, that's all. But we try to substitute things that are, we burn candles, we meditate a lot, okay? And that, again, is not bad as long as it's focused on self-awareness. But basically what we're doing is we try to figure out who we should be, okay, versus who we are. One of my favorite stories, and I'll keep it brief here, you can read a little bit more about Nasruddin in the book. Nasruddin's looking for his donkey, and he's racing up and down the village streets on his donkey, okay, and he's whipping the donkey, and he's very frantic, and finally somebody steps out into the street and yells after him. He says, Nasruddin, Nasruddin, what are you doing? And Nasruddin looks back over his shoulder, and he says, what am I doing? What am I doing, you fool? I'm looking for my donkey. When we want to become spiritually grounded and achieve authentic spiritual growth, then we have to look in those places that are right in front of us, and that's our interior, okay? So we have to look and recognize that we already have the donkey. We already have the ability to find what we're looking for, and that is authentic spiritual growth. All we got to do is learn to look in and become. Another story that I like is DeMello. He wrote a book called Awareness. I highly recommend it. It's a really, really great book. It's probably one of the books that really got me started on this journey a long time ago. At any rate, it's the story of the tower. In it, he talks about a man who enters a tower. It's very dark in there, but he sees a staircase that winds up and it just goes into the darkness. So he starts up the staircase, and he gets a little ways up, and then he looks back, and he's horrified to realize that all the stairs behind him have fallen off down into the abyss. All he can do is move forward. He recognizes that it takes courage to grow spiritually. It takes humility. It can't be faked because the ego will always show itself. The only thing we can do once we start this journey into self-awareness, this authentic spiritual growth journey, is we have to move forward. So as you begin to do this work, these stories are kind of helpful because they point out the fact that it does take courage and humility. It takes an emptiness of ego. But the really powerful part for me is that you can't go back. It's like once I put the idea of a really, really pink elephant with little purple dots all over it. Okay, now don't think about that image. I mean, don't ever think about it again, okay? In other words, once you start the journey, you can't go back. A pink elephant with purple dots is always going to be a part of your awareness from now on, right? Okay, have a little fun with it anyway. Final point, reality. Let's touch it. We talked about it in the last chapter a little bit. The observing presence, the observing ego presence is eternal and unchanging. It just is. Who we are is just a pure observing consciousness. Never changes, just there. A lot of physicists and scientists today are saying it is probably one of the most essential foundations of the universe, of reality. Same thing as space, time, matter, okay, and gravity, and probably light too. But at any rate, the observing presence is eternal and unchanging. What is, in other words, evolution, is changing everything. Everything is evolving. And that means we're evolving, we're growing, we're changing, we're walking that tower, we're looking for our donkey, we're growing in self-awareness because our goal is authentic spiritual growth, okay? So, reality is also living in the now. Can't be anyplace else because that's the only reality there is, right? We saw that in the last chapter. So these are just ways now that I'm offering you to think about this journey you're on so that it makes sense, so it really gives you the encouragement to move forward and to embrace these new ideas because they really are powerful and they will change your life. And as you change, then the world changes. Not because the world changes, but because we look at it differently, right? Okay, final concept, hurry up. We live in a hurry up environment, a culture of hurry up. Impatience, hurry up, come on, we got to get there, let's go, we're late, move it. That's pushing the river, okay? It's probably one of the most fundamental pushings of the river that we do in our modern culture. Why is that important? Because the only time there is right now. The only moment there is right now. You can't move to another moment that you got to get someplace because you missed this one. Right? Okay? That means you're asleep. You're not self-aware. So again, just recognize that these are really helpful ways of beginning to see the world around you and to see the culture that we live in. It's not conducive for enlightenment or becoming self-aware. It's definitely not conducive to authentic spiritual growth. Okay? So, hurry up. Don't bother. It's taking you out of the now. It's taking you out of self-awareness. Reality is observing presence, and that's eternal and unchanging. It's a fundamental part of the universe, in other words. Okay? It's hard to believe that we have something that powerful inside, but we do. And scientists still don't know how consciousness happens or even what it really is. But we know it's there because we can experience, right? We can experience things. So we know that we are conscious. We're conscious of our consciousness. Okay. Self-awareness, who we are, not who we should be. Religion is about beliefs. Spirituality is about behaviors and manifesting our deepest values, our heart energy, not our ego or mind energy. And deep self-awareness is authentic spiritual growth. It is the most important spiritual practice you and I will ever undertake, okay? And it's also the most rewarding, I believe. Okay? Have a good week. We'll see you in Chapter 10. Stay awake. Enjoy the journey.